We're almost experiencing full moon in Sagittarius, but before that, the moon is right now in Scorpio, and we have some time to prepare the full moon in Sagittarius. Hi, I'm esoteric cloud surfer, I do astrology and tarot readings, and I like to talk about spirituality and bring a new perspective into it. Leave a like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So, right now the moon is in Scorpio, and soon, I don't know, in 2 days maybe, it will be into Sagittarius. So right now we can prepare the full moon in Sagittarius because full moon always brings scenarios of extra stuff, extra feelings, extra emotions, extra things happening to you or around you or to people around you, extra attachment to the past, nervousism about the future, or extra abundance, extra satisfaction, because the full moon is the accumulation of all the things we have experienced since the last new moon. But it's not always in the full moon that things materialize, that the flowers bloom. The full moon is the energy accumulating that then can be the flower blooming or can be the start of the blooming process. So some people get nervous or anxious or they feel insatisfied, they feel like they wasted time or energy because around the full moon, and people do this subconsciously. It's not like they did a new moon ritual and things didn't play out. Just like naturally people be feeling more stressed about money, about career, about emotions and feelings around full moons, and more things happen that usually don't happen. Clashes of cars, ideas, feelings, emotions, whatever. So it's a great opportunity right now to experience this full moon in Scorpio, quote unquote, to then prepare for the new moon in Sagittarius. So, what can we expect for the full moon in Sagittarius? What type of extras, what type of intensity can we expect? So, it's all about spirituality, it's all about imagination, it's all about community, and it's all about being mutable, flexible, gullible, or too scattered with yours and others' visions, imaginations, creativity, passion, and frustration, with an added aspect of spirituality, teaching, personal testimonies, and connection to higher realms of existence. That's why the usual representation of Sagittarius, it's the centaur, which is an animal body with a human torso and head, so that presents the evolution of going from our animalistic nature into a higher nature, and usually the centaur is pointing to the sky with their arrow, which means that even though we are already an evolved spirit, we are already looking and imagining and wanting and needing a next level of evolution, more spiritual in this case. So, for an example, full moon in Sagittarius can bring extreme satisfaction or extreme insatisfaction to your spiritual knowledge or to how to execute, show to others, and how others see you about your spiritual knowledge, about your faith, or about your beliefs. Full moon in Sagittarius can also bring too much communication from you to others and the surrounding, or from the surrounding into you, that are about spirituality, about creativity, about more personal things, about testimonies, about memories, and that can make you feel very uncomfortable. Or you expressing that to the world can make the world feel uncomfortable, or you expressing, being forced, or just having to express more personal belief systems or more personal ideas, you might be feeling nervous because you might be thinking that others will react to you in a weird way, or you and others can just be too open and too gullible, and you might be expressing or reacting and responding too much to others expressing personal faiths, personal beliefs, personal ideas, personal creative projects, personal desires, personal kinks, or stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you believe into spirituality and to astrology, if you have some belief system or some faith that it's not so logical, not so easy to prove, or not so scientifical, and you are around people that are more logical, more dry, more scientifical, you might feel nervous right now, or in when the full moon in Sagittarius arrives. But it's up to you to right now, with full moon in Scorpio, to create, to manifest, or remember that you already have an emotional stronghold. Because nothing is more important than your personal space. because it's through your personal space that then you can mix and mingle with others' personal spaces and create something. That's how we created this body, mind, and emotions. We came together as a space into another space, aka spirit, aka soul, solo spirit, and then we created a bunch of things together. So it doesn't really matter what others think, slash feel, slash react to your beliefs, to your imaginations, to your testimonies, to what you went through, because sometimes you go through certain scenarios and it was harsh for you. And others might think that you were a wuss because they or somebody that they know went through it and it wasn't that hard. Or you can go through a certain scenario and be happy about it, and others might react weird to it because they don't see the reason to be happy, or they're jealous about you or whatever. And that doesn't really matter, because those people, in the end of the day, you don't want to mix and mingle spaces with. You might have to because they are a part of your job, a part of your family, maybe they are at school with you, maybe they are or your group of friends or online group of gamers, whatever. But mixing physically, it's not the same thing as mixing spiritually. One thing leads to another. Mixing spiritually leads to mixing physically. So if you are in certain physical spaces and in certain relationships, it's because of a certain spiritual state that you are into. And the thing is that what you experience physically can affect your spirit, but it takes more time and you need more physical events to affect your spirit than vice versa. A small spiritual event, a small spiritual change can affect way quicker and in a bigger magnitude the physical realm than the other way around. That's why I say, in order to change your physical circumstance, it's much more powerful 1 second in a good spiritual state than even years in a bad physical or mental state. Because the spirit being the creator, you being the creator, when you go back to your true form, to your true awareness, to your true powers, you are way more powerful than anything down here, quote unquote, but we still have to respect it because we created it and we must take care of it, right? But those people that you might feel nervous about expressing, or about them remembering, or about them questioning you about your uniqueness, individuality, spirituality, faiths, or beliefs, you don't really want to mix with them at the spiritual level. You don't really want to build something that is personal to you, that is spiritual to you, that is exciting, creative, and that is heart fulfilling to you. So still express yourself. Your coworkers might think you weird, people around you might think you weird, they might start acting towards you in a weird way, they might limit your access to their personal life. Who cares? Because my girlfriend said this once and it's very true. It's plain 2026. People that don't believe or at least tolerate spirituality are dumb. Because we've been experiencing too much, we've been aware of too much right now to not understand, to not at least accept or be open to the perspective that are other things beyond reality that create reality, that influence reality. And even science is understanding that what we see, what we touch, is not everything that it is, and things that we don't see, things that we can touch, create and change in quick manner and big magnitude reality and the things that we can touch and see. Now, one exception will be religion, because religion is not really spirituality. Religion is more like somebody said this event happened, so it must be true, and you, if you don't believe it, you are wrong. One of the main one of the main keys of spirituality is that everybody is a spirit, everybody is a creator. So first, forcing somebody or forcing somebody to accept that somebody else created them, it's wrong. Then sharing that to others might make others feel wrong, or might make them fall into your legion of that worship, because worship is a worship. That's for another video. So you might be creating animosity unnecessarily, or you might be putting somebody under a spiritual UFO, a mental perspective that kidnaps them and takes their awareness out of their own power, so they don't realize or they don't accept their own powers anymore. That's one of my biggest things against religion, done in the wrong way, of course. It's they take the people's powers away or they take people's perspective away from the powers, or they make, even the worst of all is when they make people feel bad because of their power. Like Christianity and Muslim religions do that a lot. They make people feel bad about their power as beings, even about their animalistic natures. So if you are into a religion that especially can create problems, because that's the other bad part of religion, is there is a lot of animosity between different religions. Not Buddhists though, they be chilling, right? So if you think somebody in your environment will be weird because of your religion, keep it to yourself, keep it more personal, because spirituality doesn't involve that fight of egos, doesn't require you to fight or worship something. It's just you actually bring more possibilities to physical scenarios, and nobody will be against that, only if their spirit is cursed, okay, they're living backwards. They're not doing an expansion. They're not doing an expansive rotation. They're doing a compressing rotation. You know what I'm saying? That's a real theory. How things that spin to the right, I think, evolve, and things that spin to the left devolve. It's something like that. You can go and check it out. But so the point of this part of the video is to express your faiths and beliefs if they are personal, if they're a part of your personal testimonies, if they invoke more space, more possibilities, or a fresh, liberating, and freedom bringer perspective, like interpreting some dreams, explaining maybe a person is experiencing something bad in their life, explaining them why that might be happening and the way to get out of it, or a way to go through it, or a way to make things lighter. Don't try to change people's minds because your spirituality is correct and everybody's wrong and everybody's trying to do something and you must protect ourselves. No, spirituality point is the opposite, is to open up, is to expand. Because you as a spirit, in order to have a physical experience, you had to focus, you had to contract a lot. And now we are on the turning point where we are starting to realize, to be aware on a realistic way of the powers that we use to create this experience. We are in the lowest point of the U, and now we're starting to go up and expand more. So if you have something exciting, creative, that makes you and people feel good, feel excited, feel free, feel light, but still that has some physical application, there is some reasoning behind it, you should be expressing that. Because remember that the sun is in Gemini. That's why the full moon will be in Sagittarius. So the expression, the act of talking, the subject itself must be logical, must be a bit more practical, or at least, not at least, but you can get away with anything right now if you speak well enough, if you can prove your point. And this is a good factor because it doesn't mean that people need to believe you, people don't need to agree with you, people don't need to join your team, but they can be interested and they can accept your Sagittarius energy, faith, and belief if your Gemini energy, your speech, your reasoning, your thought process is good, attractive, or entertaining enough. And especially Uranus is in Gemini, so if your speech, if your message brings an energy of change, freshness, innovation, opposition, or rebelliousness, or if you're able to surprise somebody with a thought process, most likely they will enjoy you, or enjoy that conversation, or enjoy when they're around you, even if they don't believe you. Even imagine you are into tarot or astrology, and you can explain it in the way that makes sense, with always a practical application. Don't get lost into la la land, you know what I'm saying? Don't be trying to predict the future. Just read the moment, and then that can lead to somewhere, right? So they might not entirely believe you, they might not even give a fuck about that, but because you surprised them, you made them get a moment, now they vibe with you because Gemini season, sun, and you close to a full moon in Sagittarius. So the feeling, the need for spirituality, the need for a bigger understanding, the feeling of a wider connection is very real and very present. So people will be chasing that or rejecting that because they're so logical, they're so dry, or they got bad experiences with religion and spirituality, they got bamboozled, they got lost into la la land, they might feel defensive. So you or their own environment bringing spirituality might make them feel scared and jump into the ocean instead of keep going into that vessel of communication. So before all that though, before the full moon in Sagittarius, we have right now full moon in Scorpio, because every time the moon is in Scorpio, it's kind of a full moon scenario, because the moon is exalted in Taurus, the opposition of Scorpio. So when the moon is in Scorpio, you can be emotionally aware of all the reasons. Even you might not be able to point at it, you might not be able to say it's this and that, but emotionally you are more aware, you are more into that space of everything that makes you and others overreact, be overly attached, or be overly insecure about. So full moon in Scorpio for strong spirit is usually a great time of realization and taking power into your own hands internally, because Pluto co-rules Scorpio in the end of the day. So internally speaking, while the moon is in Scorpio, it's a great time to take matters into your own hands, but always in a sweet way, always in a practical, sophisticated way, aka bringing the energy of Taurus to balance the transformation and the intensity of Scorpio. So that is what I was saying, that is your emotional fortress, your spiritual compass, to then guide you into the full moon in Sagittarius. Because if you're strong internally, you can be yourself, you can express yourself, you can be around the vultures in the room without being afraid of them picking at you. Because even if they pick at you, it doesn't hurt you, because you are fulfilled internally and you are able to do the spiritual sonar exercise. I actually made a video about that, I believe, a long time ago, which is basically you work like a sonar. How does a sonar work? It sends a signal, and the signal goes into the bottom of the ocean, and then it comes back to the boat, and then different lengths, different distance that the signal uh, goes through until it comes back to the boat creates a map. So you can do that as well. You express your message, your feelings, your emotions, your creativity, your art, your faith, your belief, your spirituality, and then you map out whom your audience, you map out who was listening, who was paying attention, who was dismissing, who was slightly interested. But in order to do that, you must be first have a emotional fortress, a spiritual compass, so you don't get lost with those reactions. Because if most people react poorly to your message, you might think twice. And that's another danger, quote unquote, for the full moon in Sagittarius coming through. You might be extremely gullible. So to the failure of your message and testimonies, or to the success and the shiny looks of somebody else's message. So imagine you are expressing something, or somebody questions you about your spirituality. Somebody, I don't know, imagine you have a YouTube channel about some weird stuff, quote unquote, that it's not weird anymore, but some people in the old program still think it is, and they bring that to you, and you might be feeling nervous, you might be feeling exposed, and if they react wrongly to it, you might start creating doubt and dismissing those beliefs and testimonies yourself. So it's being wrongly gullible to an external negative option, or you can be embezzled, you can be hypnotized, you can be convinced that somebody else's religion, somebody else's spirituality, somebody else's testimony is truthful or saving or empowering, while they just emotionally manipulating you, or they're just talking some nonsense, they're just pandering in order to make money online, for an example. But with the extreme attachment, the extreme spiritual community vibes from full moon in Sagittarius, you can just feel connected to spirituality or things out of logic in general. So make sure to, using this full moon in Scorpio, have a very strong spiritual compass. Remember who you are. Go within you and discover, rediscover, and update your values. In Taurus, you have practical values, limits, and boundaries that others might not cross or have to cross in order to own your trust or your support or your appreciation. And also the core set of values in Taurus is like what others need to do or not to do, what they must show you or not show you, what they must give you, how and when they need to support you for you to deepen the connection. With Moon in Scorpio, the cores and values are more emotional and more spiritual. It's like, can somebody be around you even if they don't believe what you believe? Can somebody still be around you and you both can be yourselves and be a bit more egotistical? Your egos dance instead of clashing? Is maybe somebody went through something very difficult and very harsh, but they are now brighter and more golden because they birth out of that situation like the phoenix? Can you trust somebody with a secret? Can you trust somebody with some sensitive information? Can you share intense, dangerous even situation with somebody, socially or physically? That's the core set of values with Scorpio. More personally, is whatever you're talking about doing motivating you? Is it creative? Is it empowering? Does it make you focus more on your path? Does it make you stronger emotionally and mentally? Does it make you feel more secure and more stable on an emotional way? Whatever happens outside, you got yourself. If so, those things are worth talking about or connecting. If not, just forget about it. Just forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Focus on your own path. And for more logical people, trust me, I have an Aquarius stellium, Mars in Libra, you know what I'm saying? So I'm very logical, I'm very technical, very wordy, and I still sometimes surprise myself with how, because I have Taurus moon then, so it's easier for me to be aware of emotions and feelings, but sometimes I still come to conclusions and make sense of like that emotional feeling, that emotional, that emotional pattern. It's because of this, and it represents that. And in certain situations, it makes me feel like this, so it perturbs me or helps me. That's what we're talking about here. This full moon in Scorpio, mapping out, having a consistent image and consistent awareness of your emotions and feelings, so you don't get too scattered by yourself or by others with a full moon in Scorpio. You know what I'm saying? Important points before we finish the video. Mars is in Taurus, opposing the moon right now, so you and others might be overreacting, being too opposing, or creating scenarios of balance between feelings and emotions, passion, motivation, intense love, or frustration. Because the feelings and emotions are deeper, more spiritual, more emotional. The passion and the frustration are more practical, more materialistic, more about image, pleasure, and sophistication. The balance point comes from you being able to feel secure, feel valued about, or giving that to others about whatever passion or frustration that they're going through or that you're going through, in order to obtain some security, some profit, some sophistication, or just to uphold your limits and boundaries. We also have Pluto in Aquarius, that is now retrograde, but it's a squaring with the moon, so we're learning how to feel more spiritual, how to feel more consistent, or how to feel more intense, or just how to go deeper about the transformation process that the world is going through. So if the world is going through that, we go through that as well, in order to become more unique, more logical, more social, that also supports a systematical change that cares more about the individual while being more aware of social problems and needs. So we reacting, we're making ourselves a part of that transformation. We're going with the flow because it's the very early stages, and the whole world is changing. We can see some truth coming up. We can see smaller but more individuals and stars rising up, more but smaller communities rising up. I've been seeing this for years, but like streamers, for an example, or artists are getting more popular without being a star, but are more of them. People now care more about things that are more local to them physically or spiritually. And with this moon in Scorpio, and especially with the sun in Gemini as well, we are learning how to feel and be more sure and more ourselves in our weird and kinky ways, while communicating and receiving communications from others in a lighter, more logical and distant way. Because sometimes information is just information. What others think are just what others think. And there is a misconnection, a misunderstanding between Sun in Gemini and Moon in Scorpio because of that. Because you might be taking your thoughts and other thoughts and words too deeply. You might be caring too much about what somebody thinks, or vice versa. Somebody might be reacting too much, overreacting and over caring, even holding some grudges about what you think, or just the way that you were communicating, or just because you communicated about something that makes them feel weird, now they feel weird towards you. And let's end the video right here. This is a preparation for full moon in Sagittarius, and the key point is to construct our emotional fortress before we go to the expansion, party, and connection of full moon in Sagittarius. So thank you very much for watching. I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. Stay cool, stay healthy.